Once upon a time, far beyond the frozen mountains and the shimmering seas of ice, there was a place so magical, it could only be found by those whose hearts were full of kindness. The elven village. Lights danced between little red-roofed houses, warm smoke curled up from chimneys, and the air smelled like freshly baked cookies. Snowflakes drifted down like tiny pieces of stars, while distant bells played cheerful melodies that felt like a gentle embrace. Our imaginary camera glides over glittering bridges of ice, past colorful sleighs racing like sparks of light, until it reaches the very center of the village, the famous Plaza of Lights. And there, we find a very special elf. His name was Nino, an apprentice elf, small, with a hat that always tilted to one side and eyes as bright as Christmas ornaments. Nino wasn't the fastest, or the strongest, or the most organized, but he had something no other elf had, a dream far too big to fit inside him. While the other elves hurried around preparing presents, Nino held a tiny golden star he kept in his pocket. He cradled it gently, as if it were a spark of hope. Nino dreamed of creating the perfect gift, not an ordinary toy, not a simple decoration. He wanted to create something that could make any child smile, even on the hardest days. A gift that somehow carried a piece of Christmas magic itself. But there was one small problem. Our camera drops into Nino's messy little workshop. Inside we hear, and of course, nothing ever worked the way Nino imagined. A toy falls. Another springs to life on its own. A third one explodes in a burst of red glitter. Nino sighs. One day, I'll get it right, he murmurs, wiping glitter off his face. And on that very morning, as the village prepared for the grand festival of lights, something unusual shimmered across the horizon. A silver aurora, soft, quiet, almost shy, swept through the sky. Every elf stopped to stare. Everyone, except Nino, who had no idea that this mysterious glow was about to change his life forever. With a gentle note of suspense, the narrator closes the introduction. Because what Nino didn't know yet is that the Christmas magic was about to call for him, and only him, leading him into an adventure that would transform not just his heart, but the entire elven village. The day moved forward in the elven village, and the preparations for the grand festival of lights filled every corner with joy and sparkle. Yet, in the middle of all that excitement, there sat a little elf swinging his legs on the edge of a gift box. Of course, it was Nino. With his crooked hat and a smear of green paint on his nose, he watched the others working. Tico, who could build 100 toys an hour. Lila, who crafted perfect bows with a single flick of her hand. And Maestro Chimi, the old elf who tested every toy to ensure it sparkled with true magic. But Nino, oh, Nino. Nino wanted to be just as good as them. He wanted to prove he could create something amazing too. More than anything, he wanted to make someone smile with something he made with his own hands. Inside his small workshop, toys lay scattered on the floor. Tools were bent out of shape, and glitter covered almost everything. Nino looked at his hands. "I just want to make the perfect gift," he whispered. But nothing ever comes out right. And in that quiet sigh, something magical happened. A silver glow, the same glow from the aurora, slipped through his window. It wasn't wind. It wasn't ordinary light. It was alive and inviting. Nino blinked as the glow circled him, sketching symbols in the air he didn't understand, but somehow felt. He reached out, and the magic touched his fingertips. In that touch, Nino felt hope, but before he could make sense of it, someone rushed into the room. It was Lila, the cheerful elf with sparkling braids. Lila always arrived like a colorful tornado, knocking over papers, ribbons, boxes, and occasionally other elves. She skidded to a stop. "Nino, did you see it? The silver aurora? They say it only appears when something big is about to happen." Nino looked at her, startled and curious. The silver glow vanished, as if it had slipped straight into his heart. Lila clapped excitedly. "And Maestro Chime is looking for you. He says he has something very important for the festival." "A task for Nino?" He fixed his hat, wiped his face, with little success, and hurried after her. Inside the main hall, elves hung lights, tested bells, decorated windows, and wrapped giant garlands. At the center, lit by magical candles, stood Maestro Chime, white beard, round glasses, and a stern but gentle look. He adjusted his glasses and stared straight at Nino. "Ah, Nino. Just the elf I needed." Nino gulped. The maestro continued. "The Festival of Lights is near, and this year, we need something special, something unique, something that reminds everyone of the true joy of Christmas." Nino's heart pounded. The maestro leaned forward and handed him a small wooden box. "I want you to create this year's heart gift." The heart gift was the centerpiece of the festival. The gift placed atop the great tree, symbolizing kindness, unity, and joy. It was the highest honor and the greatest responsibility. Nino's eyes widened. "Me? But I can't even finish a toy without blowing something up." The maestro smiled. "That is exactly why. The most meaningful gifts come from those who know how hard it is to get things right. Now go, Nino. The village believes in you." And so, with the wooden box trembling in his hands, and his heart trembling even more, Nino received the mission that would change everything. But what he didn't yet know was that creating the heart gift would require more than skill. It would demand courage, friendship, and the strength to believe in himself, even when everything seemed impossible. With the Maestro Bell's little box held firmly between his hands, Nino walked through the magical village wondering how he would begin his big project. But something seemed to be calling to him, as if the box whispered in a silent language, asking to be opened only at the right moment. That was when the silver aurora appeared once again in the sky, this time stronger, brighter, like a luminous trail guiding a traveler. And Nino realized that, to create the heart gift, he could not stay trapped inside his workshop. He needed to find something special, something that existed only beyond the village. So, with newly born courage and his always crooked hat, Nino followed the aurora's trail into the frozen forest, a silent place filled with giant pine trees that shimmered as if they were made of glass. The snow fell more slowly there. The air seemed to sing, and every step left behind blue footprints, as if the forest recognized who walked with such a heart. That was when Nino heard a sound, a soft, crystal-like tick-tick-tick, as if it were a clock made of ice. He followed the sound until he found a small white fox, with a long tail and an alert gaze. But she was not an ordinary fox. Tiny bells hung from her ears, ringing with every movement. The fox tilted her head, watching Nino. Are you following me?" Nino asked, shy. The fox spun around and ran ahead, signaling with her tail for him to follow. And so the first part of the journey began. The fox led him to a clearing where a huge crystal, blue like the midnight sky, was embedded in the ground. The crystal lit up and projected words into the air. A riddle. Joy is born when the heart sees beyond what the eyes can see, Nino thought. He thought hard, but the answer felt distant, until he noticed the fox trembling from the cold. Nino took off his own scarf, colorful and crooked, and wrapped it around the little fox's neck. She smiled, yes, a real smile, and the crystal glowed, releasing a small bluish shard that floated into the box in his hands. A piece of the heart gift had been earned. Smooth transition from the narrator. And so, the first step was taken. Leaving the frozen forest, Nino followed the silver trail to a new destination, the famous City of Lights, where magical lanterns floated through the sky like giant fireflies, and the streets were decorated with sparkling arches. The city was celebrating. But something was not right. The moment Nino entered the main square, he heard shouting, then laughter, then the unmistakable sound of many things crashing. There he was, Tico, the fastest and most clumsy elf in the region. Tico ran in every direction trying to catch lanterns that flew out of control, while a crowd tried not to get knocked over by him. "Tico? What is happening?" Nino asked, astonished. Tico stopped, hair standing on end, and lanterns stuck to him like stickers. The lanterns went wild. They will not light up. And without them, we will not have the Dance of Lights. Nino knew the Dance of Lights was one of the city's most awaited moments, when everyone gathered to watch floating lanterns paint drawings across the sky. Without it, the city's joy would fade away. And then, the Maestro Bell's box began to glow again. Nino opened it, and a small beam of light pointed directly at the runaway lanterns. Maybe they only need something their hearts are missing, Nino murmured. Nino placed his hands on the lanterns and spoke gently. You do not need to shine alone. Let us shine together. The lanterns calmed down, lighting up little by little, one by one, as if responding to his kindness. Tico cried, moved, and in the sky, the lanterns formed a giant golden heart. And in that moment, the second piece of the heart gift appeared as a golden spark, settling softly inside the mysterious box. The last part of the journey took Nino somewhere unlike any place he had seen before. A place with no lights, no music, no celebrations. The silent lake. Its waters were so still they looked like a perfect mirror. Nino saw his reflection, small, unsure, holding in his hands the box that carried half the magic he sought, and half the fears he kept hidden. Nino sat by the lake. What if I cannot finish the gift? What if I disappoint everyone? He whispered. Fragile. It was there that the silver aurora appeared once more, reflected on the water. But this time, it showed no paths, no riddles, but memories. Nino saw himself as a child, trying to make his first toys. He saw his mistakes, his falls, but also every smile he tried to offer with his crooked little gestures. The aurora whispered, with a voice like wind, the perfect gift is born from the one who never gives up trying. Nino cried. But it was a soft cry, from someone who finally understands something deep. The water glowed, and the third piece, a tiny crystalline drop, rose to the surface and entered the box. And so, with the three pieces of the journey united, Nino was ready to face the moment that would change everything. The journey had ended, but the greatest challenge was about to begin. Night finally fell over the magical village of elves. The lights were on, the villagers prepared for the long-awaited festival of lights. And the great tree at the center of the square glowed with thousands of tiny, colorful orbs. But the most important thing was still missing. The heart gift, the piece that would crown the celebration and spread hope throughout the village. And that was exactly what Nino carried in his hands as he crossed the square, taking a deep breath, trying to steady the nervousness beating in his chest. He carried the wooden box, now filled with inner lights shimmering in blue, gold, and crystal, the three pieces he had earned on his journey. They seemed to murmur to one another, as if they knew the moment of unity was close. Maestro Bell waited at the top of the main platform. His face was calm, yet worried. Beside him, Lila and Tico cheered for Nino with wide smiles, trying to lift his spirits. Go, Nino. I know you can do it, Lila said with excitement. If it goes wrong, well, we run, Tico joked, earning a light smack from Lila. But the truth was that Nino was not feeling confident at all. When he climbed the platform steps, the cold wind touched his face, but this time, it did not feel like just wind. It felt like doubt. The box grew heavy in his hands. The inner lights began to flicker, weak, as if losing strength. And then, in front of all the gathered elves, the magic inside the box simply went out. A murmur swept through the crowd. The great tree's lights trembled. Even Maestro Bell stood still, silent. Nino looked at the box and felt something break inside his chest. I ruined everything, he whispered. But before Maestro Bell could say anything, a shadow covered the sky. From high above the clouds, she appeared, the silver aurora, but not as before. Not a gentle line, not a soft glow. Now it descended like a storm of light, swirling, dancing, wrapped in shimmering winds that seemed alive, almost wild. The entire village fell silent. And then, a voice. A voice that did not belong to someone, but to everyone, as if it came from the sky itself. Nino, the heart that seeks perfection will never find light. The silver aurora surrounded Nino, lifting snowflakes around him. It was beautiful, but frightening. Joy does not come from the perfect gift, but from the sincere one. Nino fell to his knees, tears streaming down. But I tried so hard. I only wanted to make someone smile. And then the narrator brings the most powerful moment of the story. The aurora showed, like a film in the air, every person who had smiled because of him. The little fox from the frozen forest, warmed by the scarf. The lanterns in the city of lights, glowing because Nino believed in them. His reflection in the silent lake, showing his courage to face his own fears. Sometimes perfect gifts are born without us realizing it. They are born from our simple gestures, from our truest heart. And then, the silver aurora whispered, "The perfect gift is you, Nino." A deep silence filled the village. Nino's heart finally understood. It was not about perfection. It never was. It was about the love he placed into every attempt. And with that understanding, the little box began to shine again. First faint, then stronger, then so intensely that it lit up the entire square in blue, gold, and crystal, the three lights of the journey joining as one. Nino stood. His eyes shone with renewed courage. He knew what he needed to do. And then, with the entire village watching, with the lights trembling with emotion, Nino opened the little box and let its light rise into the sky, forming a beam that touched the top of the great tree. The heart gift was about to be born, and the village's destiny now glowed in the hands of the young apprentice elf, who finally believed in himself. Here begins the most magical and radiant moment of the entire story. The moment when the world is reborn, and Nino discovers the true power of what he carried within him. The beam of light rose toward the sky like a golden river, making every snowflake shimmer like a tiny star. The little box in Nino's hands vibrated, warm, alive, as if it carried a heartbeat of its own, pulsing in perfect rhythm with his. The entire elf village watched in breathless silence. The great tree glimmered at the center of the square, waiting for the final touch, a touch only Nino could give. When the beam finally reached the top of the tree, something extraordinary happened. The tree breathed. Yes, breathed, as though waking from a long, gentle sleep. And then, slowly, it began to bloom. Not with ordinary blossoms, but with light. Luminous petals unfurled from the branches, swirling in soft spirals, transforming the tree into a giant, shimmering heart. Lila whispered, her voice trembling with wonder. "Look, the tree is smiling." And it truly seemed to be. The glowing branches opened like welcoming arms, embracing the whole village. The silver aurora still danced above, but now its movement was calm, light, like a joyful breeze. Then something even more unexpected occurred. Tiny, colorful orbs detached from the tree and floated through the square, drifting gently toward every elf gathered there. Each orb touched someone, and transformed into the perfect gift they needed most. For a musician, a small flute that played with the wind. For an artist, a pencil that shimmered with every stroke. For a child who dreamed of flying, delicate paper wings that lifted with her steps. And all the gifts had one thing in common. They were simple, small, but overflowing with affection. A miracle was unfolding before their eyes. The maestro bell approached Nino, his voice soft and trembling. "Nino, what you've done has never happened before. You created true magic, magic born from the very best inside someone." Nino, still breathless, answered with gentle honesty, "I just wanted to make someone smile." And that was exactly what made the entire village smile at once. A collective, glowing smile filled with hope. The little white fox appeared, leaping into Nino's arms as if cheering with him. Tico and Lila hugged him so tightly they nearly knocked the poor elf off the stage. And the silver aurora, the great guide of this journey, formed a single shining phrase across the sky. "Joy is the greatest gift." The village cheered, laughed, cried, all at the same time. On that night of glowing hearts and shared wonder, the magic of the village returned stronger than ever. The miracle wasn't in the box, nor in the tree. It lived in the united hearts that believed kindness could change everything. And at the very center of it all, a little apprentice elf discovered his own light for the very first time.